Chapter 1. The noise in the market dropped. As Sarah looked up from her stall, people were stepping to the sides of the road, making space. Lycans. She reached for Novelin. Nothing, stool empty, apple on the crate with one bite out of it. She was already on edge. She had been for 3 months. The shadow outside Novelin's window that vanished when she opened the door. The stranger 2 weeks ago who watched Novelin too long and was gone when Asara turned back. The night the house went freezing and Novelin sat up in bed with silver eyes, staring at the wall. 3 months of something circling her daughter, and now Lycans in the market. She pushed between bodies, scanning low. Where was she? 4 warriors in dark leather walking through the center of the market. Between them, taller than the rest, dark hair past his jaw. Thuron, the Lycan king. Asara pulled behind a fabric merchant's stall and pressed flat against the wood. 5 years of hiding and he was right here. She looked around the edge. The warriors were moving with purpose, somewhere to be. Thuron walked with them, eyes forward. Then he stopped. Novelin was in the middle of the road. She'd found a puddle, stomping in it, mud all over her dress, right in their path. A warrior reached to move her. Thuron raised his hand. He looked down. Novelin looked up. "You're really tall," she said. Thuron didn't answer. He was looking at her face. His body went still. Asara knew what he was seeing. The eyes, ice blue, silver near the pupil. She'd seen them every day for 4 years. They were his. Thuron crouched. "What's your name?" "Novelin, what's yours?" "Thuron." "That's funny," she scrunched her nose. "How come your eyes look like my eyes?" Brenna pushed through the crowd before he could answer. "Novelin, I said stay by the apples." She grabbed Novelin's hand and pulled her back, gave Thuron a quick nod. "Sorry, sir, my neighbor's girl runs off if you blink." "How old is she?" Thuron asked. 4 and trouble. Brenna was already turning. "Come on, rabbit." Novelin looked back at Thuron. "Bye, your eyes are the same as mine." Gone into the crowd, Thuron stayed crouched for a moment. Castile touched his arm. "My king." Thuron stood and walked. His hands were fists at his sides. He passed 10 feet from Asara's stall. Didn't look sideways. The warriors followed. Asara waited until they were gone. She got Novelin from Brenna and sat down. "Mama, I met a man with my eyes," Novelin said. "Eat your apple," Asara said. "His name is Thuron. That's a funny name, right?" Asara pushed the apple toward her. "Apple." "He was so tall, and he got down to talk to me." Novelin took a bite. "I told him his name was funny. Was that bad?" Asara handed her the apple. Her own hands were shaking. She almost ran that night. The bag under her bed, always packed, clothes for both of them, money, a map with 3 routes out of town. She'd packed it 4 years ago on her first night here. Repacked every few months with clothes that fit Novelin's growing body. But she sat on the bed and thought about the last 3 months. The shadow, the stranger, the claw marks she found on Novelin's window after they moved to the other side of town, the freezing room. She could run from Thuron. She'd done it before. She couldn't run from whatever was circling Novelin. She'd tried, it followed. She put the bag back, didn't sleep. Thuron sat in the inn. His wolf was slamming against the inside of him. He hadn't felt it this strong in years. The thing had been half asleep since a long time. But this girl. His wolf looked at her and something deep and old said mine. He told himself it was the eyes, the Valdric blue. His wolf would react to someone carrying what looked like his bloodline. Except the girl was 4, and something about her face. "Find out about the girl's family," he told Castile, "who they are." Castile frowned. "Why?" "Because my wolf nearly broke out of me when I looked at her." Castile was quiet, then he left. The bond, the thing in his chest that had been quiet for years, was thumping. He pressed his hand against his sternum. Castile came back the next day. The girl lives with her mother, a seamstress. No father, no husband. They've been here about 4 years. The mother moved from somewhere east, keeps to herself. Neighbors know her as Sarah. Castile paused. The neighbors know her as Sarah. Thuron looked at him. I asked around more, Castile said. The landlord has her on the lease as Asara. She used a different surname. The room went quiet. Asara, Thuron said. Castile nodded. Yes. He stood, went to the window, put his hands on the sill. Asara, here, alive, with a 4-year-old daughter who had his eyes. He didn't know she'd been pregnant. That thought hadn't formed yet. What he knew was his wolf had recognized something in that child. And 5 years ago his pack threw Asara out while he was gone. She was at the market, Castile said. Her stall was 20 feet from where you stopped. It was empty when we passed. She saw you and hid. Of course she did. What do you want to do? Nothing, not yet. If she knows I'm looking, she'll run. She survived 5 years by being invisible. He sat with it for 2 days. His wolf pushed every hour. Go, find her. Find the child. He fought it back. He couldn't just show up at her door. He didn't know she was already thinking about coming to him. Chapter 2. Asara had been an Omega, lowest rank in the Valdric pack, kitchens and laundry, quiet work. Thuron first talked to her past midnight on a Tuesday. She was making bread. He came in from patrol wanting water. He came back the next night. Small talk, the bread, the patrol. She told him the sourdough starter was 60 years old and she was terrified of killing it. He laughed. She'd never heard the alpha laugh. Weeks, he found reasons to come to the kitchen. She stayed late. They talked about nothing, and it became the best part of both their days. She never made a move. He was the king. She made bread. He closed the gap. One night he found her crying. A senior pack member had called her worthless in front of others. Thuron asked what happened. The next day the senior was on latrine duty at the border. 3 months. The bond hit on a clear night in the courtyard. He was talking about his mother who died young. He stopped and looked at her. She felt a pull in her chest so hard it hurt. He felt it too. Fated mate bond, can't be faked, can't be forced. He held her face. I'll announce it at the moon gathering. 3 days. 3 days of happy. They dragged her out of bed on the 4th morning. Sacred relics stolen from the vault, found in her room, under her bed. She said she didn't do it. A Lycan named Haldren said he saw her there past midnight. Thuron was gone, riding south for a border conflict. Asara begged them to wait. Banishment, Castile walked her to the border at dawn. Wait for him, one day, please. The council has spoken. She stood at the border for 3 days. He didn't come. Thuron came back to empty rooms. Morwenna told him. She sat with him in his study. She explained the theft, the evidence. She seemed sorry, said she'd liked Asara. Then she told him Asara had confessed, that she'd used his feelings to get access to the vault, that the bond was real for him but not for her. Morwenna made him tea. For grief, she said. She seemed worried about him. The tea dulled the bond. Over weeks the pull faded to a hum. He didn't say Asara's name again, never took a Luna. 5 years. Asara found out she was pregnant 2 weeks after the banishment, sleeping in a barn. She sat still for a long time, then she walked. 3 weeks, 2 territories, a mountain pass, a town where nobody knew what Lycans were. Novelin, born in winter, blue eyes, silver near the pupil. She moved to the border town, Brenna next door. When Novelin was 2, a stray dog lunged at them. Novelin looked at it. Her eyes went silver. The dog dropped and rolled over. Esara stopped shifting that night, buried her wolf, taught Novelin to keep it secret. You're special, baby. We keep our special stuff between us. Okay, mama. 3 months before the market, things started. Shadow outside Novelin's window. Gone when Esara opened the door. No tracks, just a cold spot where it had been. 2 weeks later, a woman approached Novelin outside the baker's, reached for her hand. Esara came around the corner and the woman smiled and said she thought Novelin was her niece. She walked away. Esara followed. The street was empty. She moved to the other side of town, different house. Claw marks on Novelin's new window within a week. Deep grooves, not from any animal she knew. One night the house went freezing. Novelin sitting up in bed, eyes silver. Mama, there's a lady, she's really sad. Where are babies? Behind the wall, she can't get in, I won't let her. Esara held her until the cold passed. She didn't know what was happening, she only knew it was getting closer. Chapter 3. 3 days after the market. Mama, do you think Thuron has a pet? I don't know, babies. I think he has a big dog. Maybe. Mama, Novelin said. What? He had my eyes. I know, Esara said. How come? Some people have the same eyes. Novelin put her spoon down. Nana Bren says you get eyes from your mama or papa. Esara's hands stopped on the cloth she was sewing. Is he my papa? Novelin asked. Esara looked at her. Why do you say that? Because he has my eyes and I don't have a papa, so, big shrug, whole body. Is he? We'll talk about it later, Esara said. Novelin sighed. You always say that. I know. Novelin was quiet, then she said, I hope he is. Esara put down the needle. The nightmares started that night, different from the incidents, worse. First night, Novelin screaming at 2 in the morning. The lady can see me now, Mama. Before she could only feel me. Now she can see me. Second night, shadows that grabbed, every candle out, room freezing. She knows, Mama. She knows about Thuron. Third night, Novelin sat up, eyes glowing silver, calm. She lost her baby, Mama, a long time ago. She thinks I can help. Whatever had been circling for 3 months got stronger. Being near Thuron had woken something in Novelin's blood. The thing that had been watching from a distance could see her clearly now. Esara sat in the dark kitchen. 3 months of this alone, the shadows, the stranger, the claw marks, the cold. She'd moved twice, slept with a knife, kept Novelin close every second. It wasn't enough, and the nightmares were new, escalating. Whatever this thing was, it was done circling. She could run, the bag was under the bed, she could be gone by morning. But she'd moved twice already and it followed. It would follow again. She picked up Novelin. Blanket, shoes, out the door, the warrior at the inn told her to come back in the morning. There's a child in this town with Valdric eyes and something is hunting her. He can hear that from you or from me. The warrior went inside. The door opened. Thuron stood by the window. He saw Novelin first, then Esara. He went still. She could see the recognition, the shock, and then something raw that he didn't try to hide. She's yours, Esara said. She's 4. I didn't know I was pregnant when they threw me out. Thuron's face changed. She watched the math hit him. The timeline, what it meant. Something has been hunting her, Esara said. 3 months. Shadows outside the window. A stranger tried to grab her. Claw marks on the house. I've moved twice. It followed. And since the market, she's having nightmares. Something about a woman behind glass. Her eyes glow silver. It's getting worse. She held Novelin tighter. I can't stop it, I've tried. Thuron crossed the room. He touched Novelin's face. The girl stirred. Her hand found his finger and held on. He looked at that hand. "Nobody touches her," he said. Esara nodded. That was what she came for. She let him take Novelin. He held their daughter against his chest. Novelin curled in without waking. Thuron looked at Esara over the child's head. His eyes were wet. "They told me you confessed. They told me the bond was fake. Not tonight," Esara said. "Tonight I just need her safe." "She's safe." Esara sat down in the chair by the desk. She watched Thuron hold their daughter. She hadn't sat down and let someone else carry the weight in 4 years. She didn't trust it, but she was too tired to stand. Chapter 4. They left the next morning. The stronghold was fortified and warded. Whatever was following Novelin would have a harder time there. Brenna cried. Novelin hugged her. "Nana Bren, I'll come back. I'll bring you something." "What will you bring me?" "I don't know yet. Something good." The ride took 2 days. Novelin rode with Thuron. She pointed at his horse and said, "That one." He put her up before Esara could argue. She talked for hours. "What's your horse's name?" Novelin asked. "He doesn't have one," Thuron said. "That's mean. Everything needs a name." "What should I name him?" Novelin thought about it. "Night, because he's black, or Pudding." Thuron looked down at her. "Pudding." "I like Pudding," she said. "I'll think about it." Novelin shook her head. "Mama says that when she means no." A warrior behind them coughed. Later she tried again. "Thuron." "Yes," he said. "Can I hold your sword?" "No." Novelin frowned. "Why?" "It's taller than you," Thuron said. So you'd fall over." "I wouldn't," Novelin said. "You would." "I'm really strong, though." Thuron glanced down at her. "I'm sure." "So can I." "No." 5 seconds of quiet. What about just touching it? 2 warriors were biting their lips. She fell asleep after lunch, slumped against his chest, mouth open. He shifted her with one arm. He held her too carefully. Castile rode next to Esara. "I should have waited for him that night," Castile said. "Yeah," Esara said. He was quiet for a moment. "I can help keep her safe." "Then do that." The stronghold hadn't changed. Esara walked through the gates holding Novelin's hand. The pack watched. Whispers. "Mama, this is really big." "I know." "Is all of this Thuron's?" "Yes." "All of it?" "Yes." "That's too much for one person." Morwenna met them at the Great Hall. Tall, silver-haired, she'd served the pack longer than anyone could remember. The elders relied on her. Thuron grew up with her around. She took Esara's hands. "I'm so glad you're back. I've thought about you." "Thank you, Morwenna." She crouched to Novelin. "Hello, sweetheart." "Hi, I'm Novelin. I'm 4. 4, that's a great age." "I know. Do you have any pets?" "I don't." "Me neither. I have Rabbit, but she's not real." Morwenna walked them to their rooms. Kitchens, courtyard, garden. She told Esara to come to her if the nightmares continued. She'd check the wards. That night, Novelin slept without nightmares. Esara watched her breathe. Late that night, Morwenna stood in a hidden room behind her chambers. Cold stone, a tall mirror, black frame, 2 shapes in the glass, a man and a small girl, flickering. She pressed her hand to the mirror. "Hold on, she's here. A little more time." Chapter 5. Thuron pulled the records from Esara's trial the day after they arrived. Haldren, the witness, died 4 months later. Hunting accident. Broken neck at the bottom of a ravine. The relics were returned to the vault by Morwenna. Nobody asked why she'd been in Asara's room. The border conflict that pulled Thuron away started from a tip, by a traitor nobody could identify. He sat with these facts alone, said nothing yet. Meanwhile, Novelin was settling into the stronghold, the way a river settles into a valley. She just went where she wanted, and everything adjusted around her. She introduced Thuron to Rabbit on the first day. She held up the stuffed animal, patched so many times the original fabric was gone, and said, "This is Rabbit, she's in charge." In charge of what? Everything. She set Rabbit on the bed. This is Horse, wooden figure, and this is Rock, a rock. Rock doesn't do anything, but he's part of it. Part of what? The group. You can't kick someone out just because they don't do stuff. Thuron sat on the floor and listened to the full history. Rabbit was brave and made all the decisions. Horse was strong but needed to be told what to do. Rock was just there, and everyone was fine with it. "What about you?" Thuron asked. "I'm in charge of Rabbit, who's in charge of everyone else." "So you're in charge?" "Obviously." The next morning she found wildflowers in the courtyard and made a crown. She brought it to Thuron during a meeting with his war council. 6 senior Lycans and the Alpha around a stone table covered in maps. "Thuron, I'm in a meeting, Novelin. I made this." She held up the crown, twigs and purple flowers. Half of it was already falling apart. "That's very nice. Can you wait?" "Put your head down." He looked at her, she looked at him. She wasn't going to wait. Thuron, the Lycan king, lowered his head. Novelin placed the flower crown on him carefully. One of the flowers fell off immediately. She picked it up and stuck it behind his ear instead. "There," she said, "much better." She walked out. Thuron looked up at his war council. 6 of the most hardened Lycans in the territory staring at their alpha in a lopsided flower crown with a purple flower behind his ear. "Continue," Thuron said. Nobody mentioned it. He wore it for the rest of the meeting, and the meeting after that, and through dinner. He only took it off when it fell apart on its own. Castiel told Asara about it that evening. She said nothing, but that night, for the first time since arriving, she didn't lock her door. Novelin followed Thuron everywhere after the first week. To meetings, to the training yard, to dinner. She sat on the bench and watched Lycan warriors spar and provided commentary. "That one's slow. He's a senior warrior, Novelin. He's still slow. The other one is going to hit him." "The other one hit him." "Told you." At dinner, she sat next to Thuron and asked him to cut her meat because, she said, "The knife is too big, and Mama says I'm not allowed." "Your Mama's right." "Mama's always right, she says that too." Thuron cut her meat into small pieces. She ate 3 bites and then started arranging the rest into a face on the plate. "That's me," she said, pointing at the meat face. "It's very good." "That's you." She pointed to a second face made of bread. The bread face was much bigger. "See, because you're bigger." "I see it." "And that's Mama, a face made of vegetables. She's prettier than both of us." Thuron glanced across the hall where Asara sat with Brenna. She was watching them. She looked away when he caught her. "Yeah," he said to Novelin, "she is." The moment that broke Asara happened on a Tuesday. She didn't see it coming. There was no fight, no confession, no dramatic conversation. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and it was raining, and she was looking for Novelin. She found her in Thuron's study. The door was open a crack. She heard Novelin before she saw her. "Thuron." "Ahem. Can you read?" "Yes." "Can you read to me?" "I'm working." "Mama reads to me before bed, but she's busy today." Quiet, then the sound of papers being moved. What do you want me to read? I don't have a book. Mama used to make up stories. I don't know how to make up stories. It's easy. You just start with once there was and then you say stuff. Quiet again. Isara leaned against the wall outside the door. Once there was, Thuron started. He stopped. Once there was a wolf. What was the wolf's name? I don't know. You have to know, it's your story. Fine, the wolf's name was Gray. That's not a very good name. It's what I've got. Okay, what did Gray do? Gray was looking for something. What? Something he lost. He'd been looking for a long time, a very long time. He forgot what it felt like to not be looking. Novelin was quiet. One day Gray found a small wolf, a pup. She was alone in the woods and she wasn't afraid of anything. She walked right up to Gray and said. Said what? She said, your eyes look like mine. Isara pressed her hand over her mouth. And Gray looked at the pup, Thuron continued, and he realized the thing he'd been looking for wasn't a thing. It was her. She was what was missing. Did Gray keep her? Gray kept her, and he never let anything happen to her. What about the pup's mama? Where was she? Long pause. The pup's mama was the bravest wolf Gray had ever known. She'd been taking care of the pup all by herself for a long time, and Gray hadn't been there to help, but he was there now. Did they all stay together? Yeah, they did. Good, Novelin yawned. I like Gray, even though his name is bad. Isara slid down the wall and sat on the floor of the corridor. She pressed both hands over her face. She stayed there until she could breathe. That night, after Novelin was asleep, she went to Thuron's study. He was still there, reading reports. She stood in the doorway. He looked up. She asked you to tell her a story, Isara said. She did. I heard it. Thuron put down the papers. He waited. 4 years, Isara said. She's never had someone to ask. She asks me, she asks Brenna, but there's never been anyone else. And she just walked in here and asked you, like it was nothing, like you'd always been there. Isara. You told her a story about a wolf who lost something and found a pup. Her voice was unsteady. You told her a story about us. I told her the truth. I just used wolves. Isara came into the room. She stopped in front of his desk. She looked at him for a long time. I've been so angry at you. For 5 years I've been angry. And the thing I hate the most is that I can't even hold on to it properly because you didn't know. You were lied to. We were both lied to. You have every right to be angry. I know I do. That's not the point. She took a breath. The point is that my daughter asked you to tell her a story and you made up a story about finding her, on the spot, without thinking about it, because that's what she is to you. She's everything to me. I know, I can see it. She sat down in the chair across from him. That's what's making this so hard. You're not the person I told myself you were. The person I hated was easier. This version, the one who wears flower crowns and cuts her meat and tells her stories about wolves, I don't know what to do with this version. You don't have to do anything. I know. She sat there for a while. He didn't push. He went back to his reports and let her sit. Thuron. Yeah. I'm going to need time. I know. But I'm not angry right now. I'm just tired, and I wanted you to know that. He nodded. She got up and went to the door. She stopped. Gray is a terrible name for a wolf. She told me the same thing. Isara almost smiled. Almost, she left. Thuron sat in the study for a long time after she was gone. He pressed his hand against his chest. The bond was humming, warm and steady, not muffled, real. Chapter 6. Castiel brought everything to Thuron 3 days later. Dead witness, untraceable border conflict, Morwenna's access to the vault and Asara's quarters. The foreign thing attached to the pack bonds he'd been investigating since the pulse from Novalin's nightmare and what he'd found shook him. It's old, Castiel said. Whatever is latched onto the bonds has been there for decades, possibly longer. It's woven so deep that the pack can't feel it. It feeds slowly, just a little from each bond, but over years. The pack bonds have been thinning. Yes, and the center of it, every thread I could trace, leads back to one place. Thuron waited. Morwenna's chambers. Thuron sat very still. Morwenna, the woman who held him as a baby, who counseled his father, who told him Asara was a liar, who gave him tea that dulled the only real thing he'd ever felt. The witness, Thuron said. Haldren, he testified, and 4 months later he was dead. Hunting accident, except Haldren hunted that ravine for 20 years. He knew every rock. The border conflict started from a tip that came from nowhere. The trader who reported the incursion, nobody saw him arrive, nobody saw him leave. The conflict lasted exactly long enough to keep you away while the council voted. And the relics returned to the vault by Morwenna. She told the council she found them in Asara's room, but there's no record of anyone authorizing her to search an Omega's quarters. She just did it, and the council accepted that. Thuron stood. He walked to the window. 40 years, he said. She's been here 40 years. At least. And no one ever questioned her. She's Morwenna, the pack grandmother, who would question her. Nobody, that was the point. She had built herself into the foundation of the pack so thoroughly that suspecting her felt like suspecting the walls themselves. Thuron went to Asara that night. He told her everything. Asara listened. She sat on the bed in her room and didn't move. So it was her, Asara said. Everything points to her. The woman who held my hands yesterday and told me she was glad I was safe. Yes. Asara looked at the wall. She was quiet for a long time. I want to know why. So do I, but I need proof before I move. If I accuse her and I'm wrong, or she runs before I can contain her. She has 200 years of power. If what Castiel found is right, yes. Then be careful. He needed more time. He didn't get it. 5 days later, morning, Novalin was playing in the walled courtyard, 2 guards at the entrance, the safest place in the stronghold. Asara went to the kitchen. 10 minutes, that's all. She came back to an empty courtyard, 2 guards slumped against the wall, breathing but unconscious, no marks on them. No trail, no scent, no Novalin. Asara screamed her name. She screamed until her voice was raw and her throat bled, and warriors came running from every direction. Thuron felt it through the bond, Asara's terror slamming into him, and underneath it Novalin's thread, faint, moving away from the stronghold, up toward the mountains. He sent the call through the pack bond, every warrior, full mobilization. Castiel reached him at the gates. Morwenna's chambers are empty, the hidden room behind her wall, the mirror is gone. Thuron's eyes went silver. His wolf pushed to the surface so hard his bones creaked. Get Asara, we go now. Chapter 7. They tracked Novalin's thread up the mountain, through old forest, past stone markers worn smooth by centuries of weather. The air got thin and cold. The trees got older. The path wasn't a path, it was a memory of one. Nobody had walked here in 100 years. The clearing opened at the top of a ridge. Flat stones arranged in a circle, runes carved into rock so old the language was dead. An ancient place, a ritual place. Morwenna was standing at the center. She looked like a different person, 30 years younger, Her hair was dark silver instead of white, her back was straight, her eyes were sharp and clear. Power was coming off her in waves. Novelyn sat on the ground inside a ring of dark energy that pulsed around her. She was hugging Rabbit. Her face was streaked with tears, but she wasn't crying anymore. She was watching Morwenna with wide eyes. When she saw Thuron and Asara at the edge of the clearing, she said, "Mama, she says she's sorry, but she has to." The tall mirror stood behind Morwenna. The black frame, the two shapes in the glass, clearer now than they had ever been, a man and a small girl, pressing against the surface, their mouths moving. Thuron stepped into the clearing. 20 warriors spread out behind him. Asara was beside him. "Morwenna," Thuron said. She looked at him. She didn't look like a villain. She looked exhausted. "I hoped it wouldn't be you who came," she said. "I hoped you'd send the warriors and stay behind." "You know me better than that." "I do. I've known you since you were born, Thuron. I held you the night your mother died. I sang you to sleep when the fevers came. I have loved you and this pack for 40 years. And drained us the entire time." Her face tightened. "Every drop I took kept 2 people alive, 2 people who deserve to come home." "Let my daughter go." "I can't." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." Her voice broke. She steadied it. "Do you know what I am, Thuron? Do you know what I did to myself?" "Tell me." 200 years ago I had a mate and a daughter. Aldrich, Silvara, a pack of our own, the Fenrath. You've never heard of them because they don't exist anymore. A raid in the night. Hunters and rival packs. They killed everyone. I found Silvara in the den. She was 5 years old. She'd been dead for less than an hour. She was still warm. Silence in the clearing. When a fated mate dies, you follow. The bond pulls you under and you die. Everyone knows that. It's supposed to be a comfort. You won't be alone for long. Her jaw tightened. I refused. My daughter was in the space between living and dead. I could feel her there, her soul and Aldrich's, still whole, not yet gone. And I was supposed to just let them dissolve, let them disappear. She held up her hands. They were trembling. I ripped out my own wolf, fed it into the gap between worlds. It was enough to catch them, to hold them, but the space between, it pulls, it dissolves. Souls aren't meant to stay there. Every year they fade a little more and I need more energy to hold them. Living energy, bond energy. She looked at the mirror, at the man and the girl pressing against the glass. I have moved from pack to pack for 2 centuries. I embed myself. I become trusted. I feed from the bonds, a little at a time, never enough for anyone to notice. And I pour it into the mirror to keep them intact. 40 years from us, Thuron said. Your pack has the deepest bonds in the Lycan world. You've kept my family alive longer than any pack before you. I'm grateful for that, Thuron. I am. You're grateful. Yes. You framed an innocent woman. You murdered a witness. You drugged me. You stole 5 years from my daughter. I did, because a true-blooded child, born from a fated bond between an alpha and his mate, was going to destroy everything. Her power would light up the pack bonds so bright that every parasite thread I'd woven would be visible. The whole pack would see me for what I am. I couldn't let Asara carry that child inside this pack. Asara's voice came out flat, so you threw me away. Morwenna looked at her. I threw you away to save my daughter. You walked through the night to save yours. We are the same. We are nothing alike. No, you would do anything for Novelyn. Anything. You'd lie, you'd beg, you'd walk into the den of the man who failed you. Tell me you wouldn't kill for her if it came to it. Asara said nothing. The only difference between us is time, Morwenna said. I've had 200 years to become what this kind of love turns into when there's no hope left. You've had 4. Give it 200. See what you become. What do you want with my daughter? Morwenna turned to the mirror. There's a ritual, the crossing. It needs the life force of a true-blooded heir to pull souls back from the other side. The child's bond energy is the bridge. She dies, Asara said. Her life force is consumed, yes. She dies. My daughter comes home. Your daughter has been dead for 200 years. Mine is sitting right there. Morwenna's composure cracked. Tears ran down her face. You think I don't know that? You think I want to do this? She looks like Silvara. Same age, same eyes. Do you think it doesn't tear me apart? Then stop. I can't stop. If I stop, they dissolve. Tonight, right now, 200 years of holding them together gone. Silvara fades and she's nothing, and I held on for nothing. Her voice was ragged. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but I choose my child. She raised her hands. The dark circle around Novelin pulsed brighter. Energy began pulling from the girl. Novelin whimpered. Mama. Thuron shifted. His body split apart, bones breaking and reforming, muscles ripping and rebuilding 3 times their size, skin stretching over a frame that filled the clearing, black fur, silver eyes, jaws wide enough to close around a tree trunk, claws that sank into solid rock and cracked it. The Lycan king in his true form, the largest any of his warriors had ever seen, 9 feet at the shoulder. Raw power pouring off him in waves that pushed the air outward. He lunged. Morwenna threw up a wall of dark energy between them. He hit it at full speed. The impact shook the mountain. Trees at the edge of the clearing bent backward. Loose stones jumped off the ground. The wall held, cracks ran through it. Morwenna's face strained. She poured more power in. The cracks sealed. Thuron backed up and hit it again. Harder, the cracks came back, wider this time. Behind him, his warriors shifted. 20 Lycans in full form. They spread around the clearing and hit the barrier from every direction. North, south, east, west. 20 bodies slamming against dark energy at the same time. The barrier fractured. Morwenna screamed with effort and repaired it. But she was fighting on 2 fronts now, the barrier and the ritual. Both were pulling from the same well of power. She lashed out. Dark tendrils shot from the barrier and caught warriors mid-charge, wrapped around their bodies, slammed them into the ground and pinned them. 3 went down, then 5, then 8. The tendrils squeezed and the warriors howled. Castiel found a gap where the barrier had thinned. He was through. Full Lycan form, dark brown fur, smaller than Thuron but fast. He went straight for Morwenna. She caught him with a pulse of dark energy to the chest. It launched him backward. He hit a tree so hard the trunk split. He dropped and didn't move. Thuron circled the barrier. He was looking for weak points. Every time Morwenna reinforced one section, another thinned. She couldn't maintain the full circle anymore. Too much energy going into the ritual. He could see it, Novelin's silver light being pulled from her body into the mirror. The shapes in the glass were getting brighter, more solid. He charged the thinnest section of the barrier, hit it with everything he had, his full weight, his full power, every ounce of alpha force in his bloodline. The barrier shattered. He didn't slow down. He charged Morwenna directly, jaws open, claws tearing stone. Every step was a crack in the rock beneath him. Morwenna gathered everything she had. 40 years of Valdric bond energy, decades from the packs before, 2 centuries of stolen power compressed into 1 point, a spear of dark energy aimed at Thuron's chest, his heart. 1 hit would shatter it. She released it. Asara moved. She hadn't shifted in over 4 years. She'd buried her wolf so deep she'd almost forgotten what it felt like. There was no decision, no thought. Her body moved before her mind caught up. Her wolf came out, small, gray, an Omega's wolf, lean and light, nothing compared to the Lycans around her. She threw herself between the spear and Thuron. It hit her in the side. The impact took her off her feet and put her on the ground. She shifted back to human on impact, her wolf too weak to hold the form. Something inside her was broken. pain so white and total that it became nothing almost immediately. She was on the stones, she couldn't move. Thuron shifted back to human over her, caught her, held her, blood on the stone, on his hands on her. No, 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 stay with me. Asara looked up at him. She could see his face, but it was getting dim. Keep her safe, she said. Don't do this. That's all I needed, just her. In the binding circle, Novelin was screaming, Mama, Mama. And then she stopped. The screaming stopped. The clearing went quiet. Every lichen, every tendril of dark energy, everything stopped because of what was happening inside the circle. Novelin stood up. Rabbit fell to the ground. Her eyes were glowing silver, not flickering, not faint, solid silver light pouring from her eyes. She was 4 years old, and she was the most powerful thing on that mountain. She looked at her mother bleeding on the ground. She looked at her father holding her. She felt the bond between the three of them, thin, new, barely formed, and she grabbed it. She pushed everything she had through that bond. Her power, her blood, everything the true-blooded heir carried. She didn't push it as a weapon. She pushed it as a lifeline, daughter to mother, the purest thing her power could do. Silver light flowed out of Novelin and into Asara, through the bond, through the blood they shared. The wound in Asara's side began closing, tissue knitting, color returning, her breathing steadied. She gasped, her eyes opened. She was alive. The ritual shattered. The binding circle collapsed. Every dark tendril holding the warriors dissolved. The power Morwenna had built drained out of the air. The mirror cracked. Not slowly, a single fracture from top to bottom, and inside the glass, Aldrich and Silvara became clear, not flickering shapes anymore, a man and a small girl. He was holding her hand. They were looking at Morwenna. Silvara put her palm against the cracking glass. She was maybe 5 years old, dark hair. She shook her head at her mother. Her lips moved. No sound came through the glass, but everyone in the clearing could read it. Let go, Mama. Morwenna stared at her daughter, the daughter she had held in her arms while the fires burned, the daughter she had spent 200 years reaching for. Telling her to stop. No, Morwenna whispered. Silvara, no, I'm so close, I almost. Silvara shook her head again. She pressed harder against the glass. Aldrich put his hand on hers. They weren't afraid. They weren't in pain. They looked at Morwenna with something settled and calm. Morwenna's power broke. She didn't fight it. She didn't try to hold on. 200 years of gripping with everything she had, and her daughter asked her to open her hands. She opened them. The dark energy left her body. She collapsed to the ground. Her hair went white. Her face creased with 2 centuries of age, her back curved. The power was gone. The mirror fell apart, glass on stone, and for one last moment Aldrich and Silvara were there, standing in the air where the mirror had been, made of light. Silvara smiled at her mother. Aldrich put his arm around his daughter. They faded, gently, into nothing. Morwenna knelt on the ground, with her hands open. Don't go, she said. Please, I can't do this again. But they were already gone. Novelin collapsed. Thuron caught her. Is Mama okay? She's okay. I fixed it. Yeah, baby, you fixed it. I'm so tired. I know. Can we go home? We're going home. He picked up Asara with one arm and Novelin with the other. Around him, warriors were getting to their feet. Castiel was upright, leaning against the broken tree, holding his ribs. The clearing was wrecked, cracked stone, shattered glass, scorch marks. And in the middle of it, an old woman kneeling in front of nothing. Chapter 8. Asara woke in a bed in the stronghold. Thuron was next to her. Novelin was between them, one hand on Asara's arm, one hand gripping Thuron's shirt. Even in sleep, holding onto both of them. Esara looked at the ceiling. She was alive. Her daughter was alive. She turned her head. Thuron was awake, he was watching her, he looked like he hadn't slept. "How long?" she asked. 2 days. She looked at Novelin. She okay? Exhausted, slept most of it. She woke up once and asked if Rabbit was okay. I told her Rabbit was fine. She went back to sleep. Rabbit was on the ground, in the circle. I sent a warrior back for Rabbit. You sent a warrior up a mountain to get a stuffed animal. She asked. Esara closed her eyes. Something inside her that had been locked tight for 5 years cracked open. You sent a warrior up a mountain for Rabbit, she said again. Her voice was thick. She asked Esara. She reached across Novelin and took his hand. She held it hard. They stayed like that for a long time. The pack learned the truth. Thuron told them in the Great Hall, all of it. Morwenna, the frame, the murder, 40 years of feeding, the tea that dulled his bond. He stood in front of his pack and said, 5 years ago this pack banished an innocent woman because we were manipulated. She was carrying my child. She raised that child alone. She survived alone. And when something came for our daughter, she came to me, the man whose pack destroyed her life, because she had no one else. He looked at the hall. Esara doesn't owe any of you forgiveness. You owe her. The hall was silent. Lycans who had whispered about the banished Omega couldn't meet her eyes. Castiel stood before Esara afterward, bandaged ribs, bruised face. I walked you to the border. Yeah. I should have questioned it. Yeah. On the mountain I got thrown into a tree in the first 30 seconds, Castiel said. That's not enough. It's not, Esara agreed. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up the difference. Esara looked at him. She calls you Rabbit, you know. Castiel's jaw tightened. I'm aware. You're okay with that? I've been called worse, he said. Esara raised an eyebrow. Have you? No, Castiel admitted. Esara almost laughed. Almost. Morwenna was alive, an old woman in a cell, no power, no wolf, nothing. Esara went to see her. She sat across from Morwenna. The woman looked 100 years old, probably was, her hands shook, her eyes were empty. You held my hands when I came back, Esara said. You told me you were glad I was safe. Morwenna said nothing. You looked at my daughter and you smiled at her. You knew what you were going to do to her and you smiled. Morwenna's voice was dry. I liked her, that made it harder. Is that supposed to make me feel something? Esara asked. No, Morwenna said. Silence. Was any of it real? Esara asked. The 40 years, the kindness, the way the pack trusted you. Morwenna looked up. All of it was real. I loved this pack. I loved Thuron. I loved what I had here. She paused. I just loved my daughter more. Esara sat with that. She went to Thuron that night. Exile her. Thuron looked at her. The council wants execution. I know, Esara said. Why exile? Because she's a mother who held her dead child and broke in half and spent 200 years trying to put the pieces back together. Execution ends it. Exile means she lives with it. Thuron was quiet. That's not mercy. No, Esara said, it's not. Morwenna was exiled the next morning. She walked through the gates. Small, bent, ancient. Esara left a blanket and food at the gate. No note. 3 days later, evening, Esara was on the balcony. Thuron found her there. They stood next to each other for a while. The tea she gave you, Esara said. How long did it take to dull the bond? Weeks, it went slowly, every day a little quieter. And now, Now it's the loudest thing in my body. She looked at him. I felt you too, the whole time, not through the bond I buried mine, but every time Novelin looked at me. Every time she tilted her head or laughed or got that stubborn look. She was you every day. Thuron was quiet for a while. Then he said, I missed all of it, the first word, the first steps, 4 years of her. Esara looked at him. You're here for the next ones. He turned to face her. I know I can't undo it. No, Esara said, you can't. But I'm here, he said, every day from now. She leaned into him. He put his arm around her. She could feel his heartbeat against her shoulder. I don't forgive you yet, she said. Thuron nodded. I know. But I'm getting there. I'll wait, he said. Esara shook her head slightly. You don't have to wait, just be here. Thuron pulled her closer. I am. Chapter 9. 3 weeks later, on the clearest night anyone could remember, the Valdric pack gathered for the moon ceremony. The great stone courtyard was full. Every Lycan in the territory was there, warriors in their formal leathers, elders in heavy cloaks, young wolves pressed together at the back trying to see over the heads in front of them. Torches lined the courtyard walls, their flames steady in the still air. Above them the moon was full and low, close enough that its light turned the stone floor silver and cast long, sharp shadows behind every person standing on it. The courtyard hadn't been this full in decades. Some of the older Lycans said it reminded them of gatherings from before their time, the ones their grandparents talked about, when the pack bonds were so strong you could feel every person in the territory like a heartbeat next to your own. The bonds felt like that tonight. Clean, bright, whole. For the first time in 40 years, nothing was feeding on them. Thuron stood at the front of the courtyard on the raised stone platform where every alpha before him had stood for this ceremony. He wore black, as always. His dark hair was pushed back from his face. He looked out over his pack and his face was calm. Esara stood beside him. She wore a simple gray dress. She had refused anything elaborate, said she wasn't the type. Her hair was down. Her hands were steady at her sides. She looked out at the hundreds of faces looking back at her, and she didn't flinch. 5 years ago, this pack had thrown her out with nothing. Tonight, she was standing at the front of it. Between them, holding both their hands, was Novelin. She was wearing a new yellow dress because she had insisted on yellow and nobody, not Esara, not Thuron, not the 3 seamstresses who made it, had the energy to argue with her about it. She had also insisted that Rabbit needed a matching outfit. A seamstress had made a tiny yellow dress for a stuffed animal without asking a single question. This is boring, Novelin whispered. The whisper carried about 15 feet in every direction. How long is this? SHH, Esara said. But there's so much standing. Novelin. My legs hurt, Novelin said. Esara looked down at her. They do not. They might. Thuron's mouth twitched. He addressed the pack. He announced Esara as his fated mate and Luna of the Valdric pack. He placed a silver crown on her head. Simple. A single blue stone the color of his eyes, of Novelin's eyes. The pack howled, every Lycan together. The bond network pulsed clean and bright for the first time in 40 years. Novelin looked up at Esara. Mama, you look really pretty. Thank you, baby. Is that a real crown? Novelin asked. Yes, Esara said. Do I get one? When you're older. Novelin frowned. How much older? A lot older. Like 5. Older than 5, Esara said. 6. Thuron picked her up. She sat on his arm and looked out at the pack. Several hundred Lycans looking back at her. Hi, she said to the crowd. I'm Novelin, I'm 4, this is Rabbit. She held up Rabbit in the yellow dress. She's also 4. A warrior in the front row dropped to a knee, then another. Then the whole pack. Every Lycan in the courtyard knelt. Novelin leaned to Thuron's ear. She whispered, but she was 4, so it carried across the silent courtyard. "Why are they sitting down?" Thuron said, "Because of you." "Oh," she thought about this. "Tell them they can get up. The ground is dirty." Thuron smiled, full, real, the first one the pack had ever seen on him. Later. The ceremony was over. The formal howl had faded and the courtyard had turned into something looser, groups of Lycans talking, laughing, passing food around. Someone had brought out drums. A few of the younger wolves were play-fighting in the corner. The torches were burning low and the moon had moved higher, smaller now, casting a colder light. Novelin was asleep. She had lasted about 20 minutes after the ceremony before her eyes started drooping. She'd spent those 20 minutes trying to pet every Lycan she could reach. A group of young wolves had eventually shifted to their Lycan forms and flopped down in a pile in the corner of the courtyard, and Novelin had climbed on top of them and announced they were her big dogs. She was asleep within 2 minutes, face pressed into gray fur, rabbit tucked under her arm in the matching yellow dress. Nobody moved her. The young wolves stayed perfectly still, barely breathing, terrified of waking the alpha's daughter. Brenna sat in a chair next to the pile. She had a blanket over her lap and a cup of tea in her hand, and she was asleep too, head tilted back, mouth slightly open. Thuron had sent warriors to bring her to the stronghold 2 weeks ago because Novelin had asked about Nana Bren every single day without fail. Brenna had arrived confused and overwhelmed, and Novelin had tackled her legs so hard the old woman nearly went over. Essara stood on the balcony above the courtyard. The stone railing was cool under her hands. She could see the whole territory from here, the dark line of the forest, the mountains beyond, the rooftops of the outer buildings where pack families lived. Moonlight on everything. The air smelled like pine and wood smoke and something else, something she could only feel through the bond. The pack, hundreds of connections humming together, warm and clean. Thuron came up behind her. She felt him before she heard him. He put his arms around her and she leaned back into his chest. "She's out," Thuron said. Essara smiled. She told Castil his fur was the wrong color. "What color does she want?" Thuron asked. "Yellow," Essara said. He laughed. She felt it in his chest against her back. She hadn't heard him laugh in 5 years. It still did the same thing to her that it did the first time she heard it in that kitchen at midnight. It changed his whole face, and it made her feel like the world was a little less heavy. They stood there for a while. Below them, the courtyard was settling down. The drums had stopped. Lycans were heading to their homes. The torches guttered and went out one by one until the only light was the moon. "She brought us back," Essara said quietly. "I spent 4 years thinking I was protecting her. She was saving us the whole time." Thuron rested his chin on her head. "She asked me to tell her another story today," he said. Essara looked up. What was it about? A pup who was braver than every wolf in the forest. "What happened?" Essara asked. Thuron smiled. The pup saved her parents, and then she asked for pudding. Essara laughed. It surprised her. It came out before she could stop it, real and warm and easy. She couldn't remember the last time she had laughed without thinking about it first. Thuron held her tighter. Below them, Novelin snored softly on her pile of wolves, Rabbit in her arms, Brenna in the chair, the stronghold settling into quiet around them. The bond humming clean through the territory for the first time in 40 years. Essara closed her eyes. She breathed in the pine and the smoke and the feeling of someone's arms around her. She thought about the bag under her bed, the one she'd packed in every town, every home for 4 years. The one that was always ready. She hadn't repacked it since they arrived. She didn't think she was going to. She was home,